Hi guys, how you doing? This is Ben, the Real Estate Pro, coming at you, hopefully going to kick you some knowledge. So today I want to talk a little bit about the buyer representation and broker compensation agreement. Now, every state I believe has a version of this, at least that I know of, and I know some states it's required for you to represent a buyer in a real estate transaction. Now, I know that surprises some people that there are states out there that don't require this form. And in California, where I've done a majority of my real estate business, it's not required, and to be honest with you, rarely ever used. I've personally never used it. Most of the agents that I know have never used it. And some of these people have been in the business for 30 years. I've been a real estate agent for, I'm going on my ninth year now. I've never used it. I talked to my broker about it. He said that he used it like on a couple of occasions, and he's been in the business for over 20 years. So I know that surprises some of you, but I wanted to show you guys this form. Like I said, it's a buyer representation broker compensation agreement. And I'm just showing you the form because just to kind of give you context as to what I'm talking about today and the point that I'm trying to make. And the way that it's set up now is you would put the buyer's name, the broker, when it begins, when it ends, the property being acquired, or you can go with a specific property only. Like let's say, for instance, if you only wanted, one particular address. And I can see scenarios where a buyer may want to do something like that. But anyway, property to be acquired, you can do like the location, the city, the county, price range, how much a compensation that you as a buyer would might be able to pay to the to your agent. All kinds of different things, cancellation, buyer representation agreement. So anyway, this agreement exists. Okay, and the reason why I'm not going over it in length is because with the NAR settlement, I'm going to anticipate that this is all going to change. Okay, now what changes? I have no idea. But I do know that when the changes take effect in July or whenever they do, that we will be required, and this is I'm speaking specifically for California real estate agents, we will be required to have a version of this document filled out even before we can open a door. So we would have to talk about our compensation up front. And we've never had to do that before as a buyer agent. We've never had to sit down with our buyer before we open the door and have the conversation of, hey, look, uh, this is what I charge. Let's negotiate and come to an agreement. And then I can start showing you properties. And these are the different scenarios that could arise. And I'm not going to go too far into all that. It's really kind of another video. And you can watch some of my other videos if you really want to get into all that. But the reason why I'm making this video is simply this. You can go ahead and go to your state, fill this out, sit down with your buyer, have this filled out. And I think what a lot of gurus, I'm going to put that in quotes, gurus and coaches out there on YouTube are kind of, in my opinion, giving you some really bad advice. And this is what I mean. Just because you have a buyer representation agreement with your buyer, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get paid. It also doesn't guarantee that you're going to get paid the amount that is listed on there that you agreed to. This is what I mean. Well, I had an attorney friend of mine many, many years ago. This was back probably in the mid 2000s. It told me something that kind of stuck with me. Is you could be in a civil situation, you can have an agreement with somebody, and you could be completely in the right. They could be 100% in the wrong. The question really is, what are you going to do about it? So let's say we have a scenario, and this is in the context of a post NAR settlement world. We're talking after all this stuff takes effect, whenever that may be. You may find yourself as a buyer's agent in a situation where you have an agreement signed with your buyer, but for whatever reason, however the transaction transpires, perhaps they can't pay you what they agreed. And the other question is, you know, if you do have an agreement signed with your buyer, you know, at least in the state of California, any type of commission disputes shouldn't stop a transaction from closing. Now, this is all new because, you know, we've never had to have this type of conversation with our buyer clients before. And I'm not aware of any situation where there was a dispute between a buyer and their buyer client and a commission. It's just commissions were usually paid by the seller. So that usually wasn't an issue. So I'm not exactly sure how this is going to be handled, but generally speaking, you don't let commissions stop a transaction. So it's possible in the new, you know, post-NAR settlement world that you as a buyer's agent may have a dispute with your buyer, but the transaction will still close. And then you'll be stuck with, and I'm just like I said, I'm not an attorney. This is just food for thought. You may find yourself in a situation where you may have to take legal action against your buyer client just to get paid. And it goes back to like what my attorney friend said, it's what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sue your client? Now, what he also told me is any good attorney will tell you not to make a habit of suing your clients. Number one, do they even have the money to pay you? Okay, and then also you open up legal liability towards yourself to like a countersuit. Maybe they can prove, or maybe they feel you don't deserve the funds because you didn't do your job. And then you're in court, you're paying attorneys, paying a bunch of money, and even if you win, you lose. So I'm not saying that this document shouldn't be signed. I'm not saying that you should insist, at least right now, between now and, like I said, all this stuff takes effect. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use this form, but in my opinion, it's largely unenforceable. That doesn't mean you can't sue or take legal action against your buyer. And sometimes maybe in certain cases, it might be worth it. But in most cases, you know, especially when you're talking about buyers that are just scraping enough money together just to buy a house, are you really going to sue your client? How enforceable is this document? And you have to think about that. And that's why I say, go ahead and have this signed, and it's an important document, but it still doesn't matter. I'm just saying, just because you have this signed doesn't guarantee you any compensation whatsoever, and I don't care what these gurus and these other YouTubers that are out there, they're telling you, oh, you need to have this signed, and this is something, you know, that should be standard operating procedure, and it'll protect you. It'll only protect you if you take action. And then you have to ask yourself, do you really want to take action? Anyways, guys, I hope this is a little bit of food for thought. To me, you know, unless you're going to do something about it, buyer's representation agreements really aren't worth the paper that they're written on. Now, I'm going to be required to use them, which is fine. I don't have any problem with doing that. But once again, I'm kind of realistic as to, you know, if some type of dispute does happen, more than likely us as agents will be on the losing end of that stick. There's no protection for us, okay? There's no, like I've said this in other videos, there's no real estate police that's going to come and go to your buyer, knock on the door and say, hey, you need to cut a check for this amount. And even if you do take them to court and you win, well, then you got to collect. And that is the process, okay? And then the other thing too, how is that going to look out in the public? How is that going to look in your community that you're going after and suing people? You know, I understand that you want to get paid and you need to protect yourself, but is it a good business decision? Anyways, guys, I hope this helps you. Definitely some food for thought. We'll see what happens between now and you know this settlement, what's going to happen with it and what their new rules are going to be. And I will predict that we're going to see some rules enacted that we weren't expecting. My understanding is that that's possible, that there might be some other things that the judge might come down with. I don't know. I'm not an attorney. We'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys have a good day, and we'll talk to you next time.